So listen to this. World's largest robot set to set sail. Let's check it out.
What you're looking at is a vision of the future. A vessel that needs only a few people on board to sail it, and that can be controlled from anywhere in the world. It sounds like science fiction, but it's happening now, and it's the start of a revolution in shipping. This vessel is being put through its paces in a Norwegian fjord. Fresh off the production line, it's packed with high-tech kit.
Well, here on the back deck, you can see the cameras and some microphones which represent the eyes and the ears of the ship.
The company behind this Ocean Infinity are building a fleet of 23 of these vessels. They'll carry out jobs like surveys for offshore wind farms or checking underwater infrastructure for the oil and gas industry.
We fitted this vessel with extra sensors, extra servers, extra cabling, extra information systems. Our ultimate vision is for these vessels to have a small crew as possible. Our idea is really that everybody on the ship has some critical job to do with their hands, their eyes or their judgment that really can't be made remote.
This ship is 78 metres long, and usually a vessel like this would have a crew of 40 or 50 people, but this is operating with just 16. Instead, some of the jobs are being carried out by a crew more than 700 miles away. They're in a remote control centre, and the plan is to move more and more of the operations there, which in this case is in Southampton. And this is that control room. Each of these booths is called a bridge station, and they're visually immersive environments. Everything you can see from on board the ship, you can see here on these screens. And as more and more of the vessels come into operation, all of these will start filling up.
I had a feeling we were going there. I'm just wondering what took so long. You know what I mean? Just mirror this to NASA. Sending spaceships into orbit, sending different telescopes and different things into orbit to be able to do different. What is there any difference? I'm surprised it took them this long to get here. Maybe it was funding, I don't know. But
the work is being shifted from the ship to this futuristic control room. Eventually, even the captain could be here, in charge of multiple ships in oceans around the world. For now, it's tasks like watchkeeping or launching underwater robots.
It's exciting to know that there's an opportunity to me to work on shore and still be involved in exciting projects. You can do almost everything that you do on the vessel. Like, you can move around, you can steer it, you can have cameras, you can see the cameras here.
It's not the only company turning to this technology. This 12-metre long boat is being tested in Plymouth Sound. It has absolutely no one on board at all. It's being completely controlled by a crew located at the other end of the country in an office in Aberdeen. I mean, could you show us how you can control it from here? Like, for example, could you move it 90 degrees to the left, which is port?
Port
is that right?
side.
Yeah, port side.
Using the thrusters, and we will turn it to port, and you see.
Oh yeah, you can see it moving.
Yeah, start moving.
Around.
Yes.
Yep. The captain has precise control of the boat in real time. Could we do a figure of 8 or something like that?
Yeah, let's go for figure 8. So now I'm moving forward. I'm sending command going forward.
That looks pretty good to me. I'm not sure I could
Looks
have done.
funny, but yeah, it's okay.
It's definitely an 8. It's definitely an 8. Robotic ships are a big change for the industry, but they'll also require a major rewrite of the international regulations that keep ships safe at sea. There's little doubt.
that's the thing right there. You know, everybody's concern or main concern is going to be safety. Like, imagine being on a cruise ship. Imagine being on a cruise ship and there's no captain. No captain whatsoever. Especially if you've ever been on a cruise ship and it's been kind of rocky. Have you ever experienced one of those where it seems like they're trying to get around a storm or they're in a rush to get somewhere? Maybe we may be behind schedule or something like that. So it's a little bit rocky. You're feeling a little bit sick. You're trying to take your mind off of it. You know, imagine that, but no one at the helm. No one in control that's on the boat. Somebody's at a computer back on land, but it's just you in the boat. So I can understand your concerns and different things like that, because that's where we're headed. So prepare yourself.
that this is where shipping is heading. What we are specifically considering in this regard is the role of the master and officers on board. Would you now consider a remote control center operator being a master equivalent, and how this will all be regulated in the context of international law needs to be seen, and it needs further work.
On the dockside in Norway, the Ocean Infinity team is busy fitting out their next ship. It will be a long time though before every ship is automated, but the industry is gearing up for change because the next wave of shipping has already arrived. Rebecca Morrell, BBC News.
All right, so in this next one, we're looking at, can Amtrak finally bring high-speed rail to Texas? Let's check it out.
The United States is in a race against time to upgrade its transportation system.
People 50 years ago didn't think about, well, maybe we should have had high-speed rail in the United States long before now. Other parts of the world have certainly initiated high-speed rail at great benefit to them.
Federal planners see an opportunity to bring this service to Texas.
I would argue that the Texas Triangle is the lowest hanging fruit in the nation for improving intercity passenger rail service.
In 2014, a group named Texas Central made its bid to bring high-speed rail to the Texas Triangle, with bullet trains traveling at over 205 miles per hour. The goal was to connect Dallas to Houston in under 90 minutes.
You cannot do that in a car. You cannot do that if you fly, if you factor in going to the airport, going through security, getting back in from the airport at the other end.
But after a decade of talk...
So how long does it take to get from Dallas to Houston? Let's type it in. Let's see, can we get a drive from Dallas to Houston? There it is. It is 3 hours and 15 minutes, a total of 239 miles, give or take of where you're going there. So give or take the mileage anyway, but roughly you're looking at about 3 hours. So to cut that down to 90 minutes, hour and a half, yeah, I'd definitely do that if I could.
Little progress has been made. The original pitch was to build this multi-billion-dollar megaproject with no taxpayer money until Amtrak announced a plan to revive the project late in 2023.
Everything is set to go. This is what we call shovel ready. We just need to reinvest in the effort.
They are now in the process of getting the finance. If they started construction, the total construction period would be 7 or 8 years.
But the backlash in Texas has deep roots and no signs of fading soon.
Even if there's a situation where I'm taken off the route, I will continue to fight for Texans.
With $66 billion in federal funds for passenger rail up for grabs, the project is poised for a revival. Is Texas ready for bullet trains? And what will a high-speed rail service mean for the millions of Texans in its path? The race to bring high-speed rail to the Texas Triangle dates back to 1987.
And we came so close. We got the legislation passed. We got the franchise awarded to the French. We competed with the Germans.
Ben Barnes was an early investor in a project to build a system in Texas that would mimic France's TGV system. The effort ultimately failed in 1994.
Southwest Airlines, who was the main opposition, Southwest Airlines spent $37 million, and they did a very good job of convincing the Texas farmers that their cows were going to quit giving milk, and all kinds of horror stories were going to happen if we had these electric trains running through Texas.
Today, most Texans use the state's 80...
Wait, what? Now that might be a real thing, that these sounds are going to cause cows not to produce milk, but from a person like me, that sounds wild to hear that. Why? Somebody educate me. Why would a cow hear that? Is it because it's spooked or something like that? And when it's spooked, it won't produce milk or something like that? But to the average person who doesn't know anything about cows, that just sounds crazy to me, that this would be your pitch for this not to happen.
80,000 miles of highway to get around.
You know, our transportation system is just really trying to keep up with our population growth. Commuters experience somewhere around 40 hours of delay a year.
The proposed high-speed rail line in Texas would connect Houston and Dallas two of the biggest cities in the country.
I don't think you could come up with a better city pairing than Dallas to Houston. The cities are in that sweet spot, the sweet spot you're looking for between 200 to 800 miles, too short to fly, too long to drive.
Andy Byford joined Amtrak in 2023 to think strategically about high-speed rail in the United States.
We think there are huge opportunities here, and certainly the market research that has been done, both pre and post-COVID, shows that there is a compelling business case that people want that convenience, that safety, that reliability of being able to, in the future, potentially leave Dallas in the afternoon, go to Houston to watch the game or maybe have dinner, and still be back later that day.
Texas is probably about the most obvious, or the one that would have the biggest return on investment, because it takes a drive that can easily be 6 hours with a bit of traffic and reduces it to a downtown to downtown train ride in about 60 minutes.
Congressman Seth Moulton was previously a managing director at Texas Central from 2011 to 2012.
If you don't build high-speed rail between Dallas and Houston, then you only have two options. You're going to have to expand airports, or you're going to have to expand the highway, or you're going to have to do both.
If built, the Texas Bullet Train could eventually shuttle over 7 million passengers between Houston and Dallas each year. That would take about 15,000 vehicles off the highway routes, or 14.5% of the expected daily traffic.
Reducing traffic by 14.5% is massive. Like, come on now, why wouldn't you do that? And this is coming from somebody who lives in Atlanta. Bro, the traffic here it makes you not even want to go anywhere. I don't even care if it's an emergency. Sometimes you feel like, why do I gotta go get in this traffic? Do I really need this arm? Whatever it is. So being able to reduce traffic by 14.5%, and trust me, as somebody I drove through Texas when I was a truck driver, right? You have to prepare yourself driving through Texas. That's how long Texas is. That's how long it is to get through Texas, bro. You have to prepare yourself mentally. It's that. So if anybody, and I don't even live there and I'm campaigning for them to get it, anybody needs something like this, it's Texas.
2035. The path for the bullet train is expected to alter 1,700 parcels of land, like this farm on the outskirts of Dallas.
This is our family farm. It's Morneyberry Farm. It's on the southern portion of Dallas, Texas.
The proposed bullet train would travel on elevated tracks. The planners hope this will allow landowners and wildlife to cross its path. Even with that concession, the project may remove thousands of acres of farmland.
It is actually set to go right over this house here.
Jody Berry says her family has farmed this land for generations. In the 2010s, she became a member of Texans Against High-Speed Rail, a grassroots collective who has opposed Texas Central.
I mean, this thing's going to cut Madison County in half like it will every other county along the line.
Now that is the negative part of it. You know what I mean? People being displaced or uprooted from their land, potentially their homes and different things that they've had probably in their family for generations upon generations. So that's the part about it that I don't like. You know what I mean? But you have to kind of figure that out in order for the state to progress and move forward and continue to move forward into the next centuries and decades of however we're going to progress. So you got to address these issues. So they should be definitely compensated. Some type of agreement should be came to with them to where they're taken care of, or y'all got to figure this out some kind of way.
We know the stories of the interstate highway tearing up neighborhoods, dividing cities, often going through neighborhoods with racial minorities. High-speed rail is very different because, first of all, it's much less land. One high-speed rail line has the capacity of 8 to 10 highway lanes. So think about how much less space you need for high-speed rail.
In 2022, a Texas Supreme Court decision gave the backers of this high-speed rail project the power of eminent domain. But right after the court's decision, the leadership team at Texas Central mysteriously resigned. The groups backing the project did not respond to multiple requests from CNBC for a comment.
I think they put all those conversations with people calling them on hold. until they can get to a point where they have a path forward for that communication.
The decision gave the backers of Texas Central a legal right to purchase land along its planned route, if property owners are adequately compensated.
Finding out that the high-speed rail could potentially go through our property has made it very difficult for me to sleep.
The eminent domain decision has been made by the Supreme Court of Texas, but it's too early for me really to comment on whether or not we would have to go down that route. It's certainly not something that we would want to do. I hope that over time we can convince all Texans of the massive benefits that this project would bring.
I think it is easier for the people on the end of the lines to be more supportive. It is a harder thing to ask people along the corridor to support it because they're seeing the impact of the particular facility on new right-of-way.
The right-of-way isn't just a problem in the countryside. In Houston, for example, the proposed path will end about 6 miles west of the city center. Connecting to the downtown light rail with this current plan will require a 20-minute bus ride.
You know, you've got cities that are already really built up, and so finding a space for that is one issue. But I think just, you know, making sure that it interconnects into the local transit system as well will be very important.
In Dallas, the elevated tracks will lead directly to the DART light rail system. But the Texas Central alignment ends there and does not connect to downtown Fort Worth and its population of over 950,000 people.
So we think terminating the high-speed rail in Dallas is a mistake.
A coalition of planners in North Texas are looking to build their own connection from Fort Worth to Dallas.
We don't know the new holding company of the Texas Central Partners, so we have no idea what their vision will be.
But some members of the group have asked for changes that could trigger a potentially costly environmental review. The National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, was created in 1970 and can be used to slow down projects.
The problem we encountered in Texas is that, ironically, even though high-speed rail is fundamentally so good for the environment, it was often environmental regulations that held up our progress.
Challenges like these can cause delays, which can send a project's costs up. As of February 2024, the Texas Central project was estimated to cost over $33 billion to deliver. Another high-speed rail project connecting Los Angeles to San Francisco is also facing delays. The project was approved by California voters in 2008. After $1.3 billion in environmental reviews, costs have skyrocketed. Completing the entire 500-mile system could now cost between $88 billion and $128 billion. The federal government announced plans to partner with the backers of
Every time I see the word Amtrak, I cringe. Sorry, man. Me and Amtrak just have a history. It dates back to my childhood. Every time I rode from Statesboro to New Jersey, which Statesboro is a small city outside of Savannah, right around in that area of Georgia. Driving from there to New Jersey, the drive is normally 12, 13, 14 hours or whatever, you know. If I was to take the Amtrak, it would take me about 17 plus hours to get from, you know, even longer, 17, 20 hours, depending on how it was. If you ever rode the train, you know, when they change those engines out and all the stops and different things like that, it takes long, it's uncomfortable. But it just always left a bad taste. Anytime I had to get on a train where I knew I was in for about a day's ride.
Texas Central late in 2023, giving the project new momentum.
The US used to be a world leader in rail. In the 1950s, the decision was taken to build the interstate system, the highways that we use today, and also aviation really took off with the jet age, and just progressively over time, rail became less of a focus for the US. So we want to change that.
Amtrak is wholly owned by the United States government. It delivered over 28 million customer trips in 2023.
Since COVID, we've actually got back to more than our pre-COVID levels. People are flocking to the railways again. But the big thing missing is true high-speed rail. That will be ultimately transformative for this country over the right distance and with the right city pairings.
Funding for Amtrak is a perennial sticking point in Washington. The agency struggles to profit on any lines outside of the Northeast Corridor and relies on subsidies to stay afloat. At the same time, the government subsidizes the interstate highway system at a much faster pace than it ever has for passenger rail projects.
You know, people, sometimes elected officials, have no problem providing massive subsidies for highways, interstates. For whatever reason, railways seem to be treated differently. It's not unique to this country.
The Texas State Department of Transportation is planning to spend $9 billion to widen parts of Interstate 45 within Houston, and over $6 billion for widening the Interstate 35 corridor between Austin and San Antonio.
Any form of transportation is subsidized. And I've got faith in the younger generation that's coming along today. And, you know, it's their children that's going to suffer the consequences of an inadequate transportation system.
Everywhere else in the world, we're trying to get people out of planes, out of cars, and onto high-speed trains because they're so much more efficient.
Congressman Seth Moulton is seeking more funding for bullet trains with the American High-Speed Rail Act of 2024. A previous version of this bill failed to pass in 2021. Still, the government is planning to spend $66 billion on upgrades for passenger rail systems, with a focus on high-speed rail. That includes a route connecting Vancouver, Canada to Seattle and Portland. Another route would connect Atlanta to Charlotte. These proposals, along with Texas Central's, would receive $500,000 in the Corridor Identification Program. Those rewards are relatively small compared to California's $3.1 billion grant to advance the San Francisco to Los Angeles high-speed rail connection. Another grant would go toward a connection from Las Vegas to the Southern California Valley.
That Bright Line, privately funded high-speed rail line between Las Vegas and California is going to be paralleling an interstate highway that's subsidized by the American taxpayer.
There's a compelling argument to provide meaningful, enduring subsidies to keep railways going, because that has a massively net positive, beneficial effect on the economy.
The bullet train in Texas will be based on the design of Japan's Shinkansen system. The Shinkansen runs on long welded rails, and the track has very minimal curves, which allows for higher speeds. It connects 22 major cities in Japan. Approximately 64 billion people have taken trips on the Shinkansen since its opening in 1964.
The United States is a kind of the green field for high-speed railway.
Masaru Yusano is a corporate officer at Central Japan Railways, otherwise known as JR Central. Mr. Yusano was also a lead consultant for the project in Texas. His team has marketed bullet trains to cities around the world.
Taiwan High-Speed Railway started their operation from 2007 by using of Japanese Shinkansen technology. And we, JRC, is now providing of technical assistance to Taiwan High-Speed Railway since 2014.
Separately, the Japan...
I know y'all looking at me like, cause y'all know I'm like totally against planes, but this high speed, I'm here for that. I am here for that. I don't know why, and y'all can probably throw all kind of different stats to why a plane is safer than a high speed railway, but either way, my brain is just gonna continue to tell me that I'm for this. I'm campaigning for this, especially if you can connect several cities or states together and stuff like that and be able to get on that and go. If you could do that at the same speed or relatively close to the same speed as a plane, sign me up.
And Bank for International Cooperation gave the Texas Central project a $300 million loan in 2018. This investment aligned with the Japanese government's export strategy. They asked domestic businesses to develop $226 billion in new exports to be earned by 2025. The Shinkansen system, much like high-speed rail projects in the United States, faced substantial cost overruns when it was being planned. Unlike US projects, the Central Shinkansen line was built quickly, opening just 5 years after the start of its environmental review. The economic and environmental benefits in Japan have been obvious. Trains can carry more passengers while using less energy and producing fewer carbon emissions when compared to airplanes or cars.
If Shinkansen were to be constructed in Texas, it would be expected to make a significant contribution in terms of the reducing of CO2 emission and energy consumption.
The trip from Tokyo to Osaka is 376 miles long and would take 7 to 8 hours to drive. It's 3.5 hours by train, and there's nothing like it in the United States.
and just from environmental alone, but from cost per passenger mile, you're going to be able to travel on the high-speed train at much lower cost than you are driving your automobile. So it's going to change the standard of living and the comforts in life. And I'm talking about the blue-collar person in Texas. I'm talking about the college student.
Amtrak says the Texas Central route could open by the early 2030s if it passes a financial review.
If we don't grasp the opportunity now, we're almost saying we're never going to grasp that opportunity, and that would be a massive omission for the US.